hopefully that won't be an issue. Okay, so I'm going to talk through a little bit about the program, and do jump in with questions at any time. And so, I mean, you guys know the need a lot better than I do when you're in the schools. We've got over 10,000 English learners in Delaware, depending on how you count. It's a five-fold growth in 20 years, which makes us one of the fastest growing states in the country. And that puts our EL population at about 8%, which is quite large for, certainly considering demographic change in Delaware. We've got the largest number in Newcastle County. Red Clay, where you are, Ellen, has the largest number of ELs, but the fastest growth is Sussex County for reasons that are obvious. So Delaware has declared ESL a critical needs area, which is really important because it opens up certain funding sources. It was estimated to me a couple of years ago that we have fewer than half the number of certified ESL teachers we really need to get proper ratios. So that's what we're facing, and that's what we're trying to address with ACE. And there's a myth going around that good ESL teaching is just good teaching, and it isn't. I mean, obviously it's also good teaching, but there's a whole set of specialist knowledge that's needed. In terms of methodology, understanding the structure of English, the particular challenges of literacy, assessment, understanding how language development ties in with the Common Core through the WIDA standards, which you guys may be familiar with. We also talk in the program about working with ELs with specific issues, students with learning disabilities, and those with limited or interrupted formal educations, is particularly an immigrant and refugee group. And of course, the cultural adjustment that the students who were born outside the United States are dealing with. Although 75% of our ELs in Delaware were born in the US, which is a surprise to many, certainly administrators, although is typical of the pattern nationwide. So these are the kind of things that the ESL program is designed to help you with. I do see someone else has joined us. Hi, Jody. Can you hear me? Oh, good. You can hear me. Good.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thank you. I only just started, so I was just going over some of the situation that, you guys are familiar with. You're at Cape Henlopen, right?
Yes.
Right. And that's one of the districts which has seen dramatic growth in ELs from very few to quite substantial numbers recently, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And again, as I say, that's really typical of the pattern we're seeing across southern Delaware. So basically in Delaware, as some of you know, sorry, I've got an echo on my line here. As some of you know, in Delaware, there is no state funding for ESL. All the funding comes from a federal grant known as a Title III grant. And this means that it's very hard for DOE to get districts to hire ESL specialist teachers. And so our response to this a couple of years ago, working with our colleagues at the Department of Education, was to say, okay, well, if we can't get them to hire ESL teachers, let's see how many mainstream teachers we can sort of convert into ESL teachers by helping you to earn an additional certification as either what's now called a teacher of English learners or a bilingual teacher. This used to be called ESOL. They've changed the titling slightly in line with more contemporary ways we talk about it. And it turns out this isn't too complicated. The Department of Education requires 5 graduate courses, plus they've now added the Praxis 2 test, and that's it. So if you already have a standard teaching license and a certificate in another area, which in most cases is an elementary certificate, EL is 5 courses plus Praxis. To be a bilingual teacher is very slightly different. A bilingual teacher means that you have proficiency in a language other than English. So if that applies to you, you take the same 5 courses. They're exactly the same courses, but instead of Praxis, you take a test to certify your proficiency in the non-English language, which is typically Spanish, but doesn't have to be.
Nigel, would
yeah.
that test be the OPI for Spanish?
Yeah, that's right. It's the oral proficiency. What's the I stand for? I can't remember. It's the Department of Defense OPI. It's
Okay.
or the ACTFL, and you have to score at a certain proficiency level, and we can help you figure out where to do that test. We don't do it in my department, but I'm sure I know we can find somewhere to do it. Right now, bilingual oddly doesn't require praxis. I wouldn't be surprised if they change that. I think that's just an oversight. Essentially, it's the same certification. It really qualifies you to do the same, except with a bilingual certification, you are certified obviously to teach in a designated bilingual program, which may have slight career advantages. There's a lot of interest in that in Delaware, although mostly, well, that would qualify you to be the Spanish partner teacher, I guess, in a bilingual program. So the 5 courses that are required, we offer through a modified schedule as part of the ACE program, the additional certification in ESL program. We arrange this in cohorts, so we get groups to stick together throughout the 5 classes as far as possible. They're all taught by my colleagues and I from the university, my colleagues and me from the University of Delaware, so some of us from the English Language Institute or from the School of Education. And we have a great team who work on this. These are courses that come straight out of our MA, well, sorry, that's not quite true. These are courses which form part of our MA TESOL program, the master's degree in teaching English as a second language, but we've modified the courses so that they meet the needs of just K-12 teachers, whereas our MA program has a slightly broader focus. We also don't offer them in our traditional format. Traditionally, our classes are offered one evening a week for 15 weeks on campus in Newark. That is not a terribly practical way for full-time teachers to take classes. We realize that. So we run them in compressed formats where we run them over shorter periods of time, but slightly longer class meetings. We use online and hybrid components, and we can offer classes in Newark and Georgetown and 1 or 2 of the classes in Dover so that everyone can meet in the middle. One of the 5 classes we now have fully online, which is very exciting. That's our first online class. And one of them is considered a blended class. So I teach it 50% in person, 50% online. So those are the 5. So that's the basic structure of the program, and it can be completed in 12 to 18 months, depending on when we get you started and how quickly. You only take 1 class at a time. Because for 2 reasons. Firstly, there's a financial reason that I'll show you in a minute. And secondly, taking 2 classes at a time while you're teaching full-time is really an enormous ask. And we think it's better for you to concentrate on 1 topic at a time. It's been a great model for the first couple of years. I do notice someone else has joined us. I can just see a phone number. So, hello? Okay, well, whoever is joining us, I hope can hear me. You can speak and I can hear, hopefully. Okay. All right. Are we good so far? If you've got any questions, feel free to shout in, or there is those of you who've got access to a computer, there is a chat box you can type questions in. So that's what we have so far. So tentatively, this is the schedule I'm looking at for a fall 2018 cohort. These are the 5 classes. We will start, I think, with the structure of English. This is the English grammar class. This is a course in understanding grammar from a pedagogical perspective, so understanding how to teach grammar. I'm just going to, so I'm just actually... No, I'm not going to do that. Structure of English then we'll offer in fall 2018. That is the blended course. So if it's over 10 weeks, there's about 7 or 8 meetings in person and everything else is online. We will offer that, I hope, in both Newark and Georgetown simultaneously. We have a classroom at Dell Tech's campus in Georgetown that is an interactive TV classroom, which hooks up live to my classroom in Newark. And it's a really great model. I did this last year. We'll hopefully have a facilitator on the ground to help out. And it really works, just as well as me being there in person, except you can mute me when you get bored of me. So it's really nice. And the rest of it is online through videos, readings, discussions, quizzes, and we can do online video chats like this as well. We'll start that after the semester has started up. The first couple of weeks are so crazy. In September, especially now, we're moving everything to a Labor Day start. So we'll probably start late September and wrap up before Thanksgiving so we don't run into the holidays. We can't cram 2 classes into the fall. We've tried it and it's just it's barely possible. Your methods class, methods of teaching English as a second language, will be in spring, starting either in January or February. UD has a funny semester. It starts in February, but we may start earlier than that. And again, we can teach that in Newark or Georgetown or both, depending on enrollment. You have to understand that while the university is very enthusiastic about this program, they do set minimum thresholds for financial reasons, which is a sad reality of working in higher ed. And the number of people I have will determine whether we can run separate cohorts or we have to run everything together. I think it'll work either way. The next class is second language acquisition, which we offer in the summer. This can also be taken this summer if you want to get a head start. I teach that in an unusual format that was developed years ago by someone else at UD as a 2-week intensive course in Dover. UD has an extension, agriculture extension center, actually, right off Route 1 in Dover, which is smack in the middle. So we get people from across the state meet together. And although I realize it's inconvenient for everyone, including me, it's a really nice opportunity to get everyone together in person. So the way we do that is we teach it over 6 full days, but then the assignments are due later in the summer. And that counts as the second language acquisition requirement. Literacy is listed as a fall class, but if you're in Georgetown, we'll have to see. My numbers are shifting daily. We'll either teach that in Dover or Georgetown, in which case we may run a separate section up here. That class is taught by my colleague, Dr. Barbara Prillerman, who teaches for the School of Education, but is actually a full-time ESL teacher at Conrad School for the Sciences in Wilmington. So she's on the ground every day teaching high school ESL. This is a wonderful course. She may well teach that in a format at the end of the summer, where again you can take the classes before school starts, but then have the assignments due later in the fall. The reason we list it in the fall is for financial reasons to benefit you, which I'll show you in a minute. And then the last class is the second language testing course, which is fully online, taught by my colleague, Kate Copeland, who is a former elementary school ESL teacher and now works with us at the English Language Institute. That may overlap a little with the literacy course, but that again requires no online meetings. She uses video and all sorts of cool stuff. And that will wrap up the program in, as I say, about 15 months. So that's how it can be done. The SLA course can actually be taken any summer, but that would be the fastest way of doing it. Okay, any questions so far? I know I'm racing through a lot of stuff here. The weird thing about doing online meetings is I can't see people. When you've got people in front of you, you can see if they're ready to ask a question, so you have to kind of jump in. The question everyone has, of course, is about cost, which we completely understand. Okay, so here we go. UD's tuition is completely out of my control. We charge what the School of Education decides to charge. Each course, each 3-credit course costs $1,950 in tuition plus a small amount in fees, and that includes a discount for Delaware educators or residents. So if you teach in the state of Delaware but you live outside the state, you live in Maryland or Pennsylvania, you still get the same rate. And if you live in the States, you get that too. We do realize, obviously, 5 courses would therefore add up to $10,000, which we believe is an exorbitant amount of money to ask. We've worked very hard to try to bring these costs down. It's very difficult, but this is what we've agreed. UD has agreed to waive tuition for the 5th and final course, which is a $2,000 discount. That's why you can take 2 courses in the last semester, because you won't be billed for the 5th course. You'll only be billed for 1 course that semester. In addition, because ESL is designated as a critical need, because we do have a shortage of teachers, there is funding available through something called the Critical Needs Scholarship. This is a scholarship given by the Department of Education. It is not handled by UD, and I have no control over it. In order to qualify for this, your district needs to give you an emergency certificate as an EL teacher. Now, we've worked with districts on this. Some districts are a little unwilling to do it because they think it's going to count against them. It really doesn't, because you guys are all fully certified already. So it's not as if any student is in class with an unqualified, uncertified teacher. Technically, DOE does not like us to do this, but they have never refused an emergency certificate request. Red Clay, it has been fabulous with us. They request emergency cert for everyone in the program, and DOE has always granted it. And we've done the same with Colonial and with Seaford. I haven't worked with CAPE yet, but I will be happy to talk to someone at district office to explain it. If you're working in a bilingual program, your school may have access to additional funds through the governor, and it's not the current governor, it's the last one, but Governor Markell's World Language Expansion Initiative. The money there, so you can explain it, is designated for professional development. Until last year or a couple of years ago, that money could only be used for the non-English teachers' professional development. The Department of Education agreed to change that, so the money can be spent on the English teacher to become EL certified. As I was saying before, there's huge advantages to that, which DOE recognizes. If you get the Critical Needs Scholarship, it reimburses, and it is important to understand it's a reimbursement after the end of the course. CNS will reimburse up to the cost of graduate tuition at UD for 1 class per fall and 1 class per spring. This is one reason we don't do 2 classes a semester. You'd have to pay for the second one. They don't pay for summer classes. This is something we are advocating to change, but that requires change at the legislative level, believe it or not. They say up to, and I always have to warn you about this because there is a specific amount of money that the state allocates to this. Technically, that money might not meet the demand, in which case the payments would be prorated. To the best of my knowledge, that has never happened. People have always got full reimbursement, but as I say, I don't know, and I wouldn't know if that happens. It's all handled by the Higher Education Office at DOE. In addition, districts do have additional funds from Title I or Title III. Title III is the ESL federal grant, which they can choose to spend on this. So, for example, Red Clay offers ACE teachers a $1,000 additional reimbursement for up to, I think it's 7 or 8 teachers a year. Christine Smith at district office can help with that. Colonial has made funds available, and I'm happy to talk to ESL coordinators in other districts to try to do that, to try to get them to pay for a class, if up to a class. Some schools and districts also have professional development funds as part of the collective bargaining agreement or master teachers agreement, so you should definitely check that. It often isn't a huge amount of money. It often amounts to a few $100s, but it's better than nothing. And because you're taking 5 graduate courses, you do get 15 credits, which in most cases will entitle you to a plus 15 salary step. Yes, I know it doesn't come anywhere close to the cost of tuition for this program, but it's something at least. So there we go. Just something to be aware, and I do want to make sure that everyone's clear before we go in. UD requires tuition to be paid at the start of the semester. Installment plans are available where they'll spread the cost over 3 or 4 months. However, if you get critical needs scholarship or district reimbursement, that comes at the end of the semester. In other words, you are going to have to put up money out of pocket and get reimbursed. I'm really sorry about this. If there was any way I could get around it, I would, but I've had lengthy conversations with everyone involved, and because it's a non-degree program, UD really doesn't really wants to have at least payment arrangements made at the beginning of the semester. We will, because you're only taking one class at a time, it should never be more than $2,000. I'm aware that's a significant amount of money, but hopefully the reimbursement comes in time for you to pay the next bill. It doesn't between the fall and spring. The CNS reimbursements for last fall came through this week. And again, we have absolutely no control over that. It's DOE. And as I'm sure you're aware, sometimes things are a little slow at that end. So just so you're aware that the money is there, but it may not come as quickly as we would all hope. So this is what it would look like. And just to be clear, this is a good faith estimate. Your individual situations may vary, and of course, UD's tuition could always go up. It won't. I think it's set for the next year, but I don't get a lot of warning when that happens. So if you have emergency certification, the critical needs scholarship hopefully will reimburse the full. Will reimburse up to the cost of 3 classes. The summer class is the one you'd have to pay out of pocket unless you can get help from your district. And then the 5th and final class, there's nothing to pay. We waive that. If you do not have emergency certification, you may be able to get some help from your district for the first and maybe additional classes, but those are the amounts you'd have to pay or make arrangements for at the beginning of the semester. With the emergency certification, hopefully it would be no more than $2,000 plus books for the end, and a small registration fee for the entire program, which we think is closer to a reasonable amount. Without the certification, obviously it's rather more. Let me pause there and see if anyone has any questions. Emergency certification. Oh, Jody's asked, do you know if they'll grant emergency cert if you're not yet in an immersion or EL classroom? Okay, if you ask DOE, they will say no. However, the answer in most cases is if your district decides, as I've persuaded most districts so far to do, that if you have ELs in your classroom, you should be considered an ESL teacher, then they can ask for emergency cert even if your contract for the year does not say you are an ESL teacher. So the answer is it's a district determination. But if you go to the district and say, look, I've got, even if it's 2 or 3 ELs, certainly those of you who are saying you've got 50% or more ELs in your classroom, even if it's considered a mainstream classroom, I know that ESL is a tier 1, general education thing, but most districts so far have been willing to say that, right, if you've got a substantial number of ELs in your classroom, the only fair thing for you and the students is to consider you a de facto ESL teacher. DOE doesn't I had a long conversation with them. If you ask them directly, they say no, but then they said, yes, but if the district applies for it, we will probably say, okay. I'm going to have to do something rather awkward here. My wife just went out and my 5-year-old is upstairs yelling for me. If you wouldn't mind excusing me just for 1 minute while I run up and see what he's doing. I will be right back. Do excuse me. Good grief. He wanted to tell me what book he was reading. How often does emergency certification start? Can it end with criteria? Yes. So emergency certification is a little complicated. There is a window at the beginning of the year and then again at the start of the winter where the school can apply for emergency certification. If we miss that window, you've got to go and get special permission, which we've succeeded in doing, but it's a headache. Now, since this cohort will start in the fall, it should be very simple that at the beginning of the fall, your districts, if they agree, would simply apply for your emergency certification. It gets registered in deeds, hopefully in September. And the one thing you need to know about this is they will give you it for 1 year, and it can be renewed for a second year, and that's it. So you have to complete the 5 courses within 2 academic years. You can't have the same emergency certificate twice. That's my understanding. Now, I always add a disclaimer here, which is anything I say about certification or licensing is to the best of my knowledge. I've had many emails and conversations with DOE, but I'm constantly surprised at the things I don't know about the system. It doesn't help when it keeps changing. That's the best of my understanding. And there's something new we discover every year. We've so far been successful at dealing with critical needs and emergency certification, even when we've got things wrong. One of the advantages of Delaware is, although they have lots of rules and red tape, the size of the state means we can sometimes get around them. But yeah, if you are eligible for emergency cert, or you think you are, you want to start talking to your administrators and to your districts as soon as possible, and you'd want that applied starting in the fall. And if we stick to the schedule that's on the screen, then we'd need to ask for it to be renewed after the first year. All you have to do is prove that you're making good progress towards the full certificate, which you would have done. You'd have taken 2 or 3 courses, and then you'd be granted it for the second year. They've always been very good about it. It's just having someone at the district office who's willing to do the paperwork for us. I do see a couple of other people have joined us. Hi, everyone. If you want to jump in with questions, please let me know. And anything you missed, this will be recorded and archived on the website, and I can go over anything at the end. Jody, and those of you on the computer can type questions. If you're on the phone, feel free just to call out. I should be able to hear you. Jody says, I have 3 ELs this year, but I'm moving to first grade. Immersion is coming, so I'm anticipating needing it to be the English-speaking side of the first grade class, right? So this would be fabulous. So what I did with Brandywine School District, which opened immersion here, now there's different types of immersion. This is the complicated part. A designated 2-way immersion program is one which tries to strategically enroll English learners, or at least students whose home language is not English. The 2 aren't the same thing, as well as English monolinguals, so that the English monolinguals learn Spanish for half the day. Well, everyone's learning English for half the day and Spanish for half the day. It's actually the kindergarten I had to just run up to see is in that program here. I worked with Brandywine, and I got their director of elementary education to agree that it would be to everyone's advantage for the English side teachers to be ESL certified. And the district actually provided some funding for that without emergency certification. I don't see any reason not to give an emergency certificate for it, but Brandywine didn't agree on that one. So it's really up to the district. I think the best thing to do there, Jody, is if I can find someone to speak to at your district office. I know Jackie Wager in Cape, who is very involved with ESL, and I'd be happy to liaise with her and see if I can find someone who could figure that out. My perspective and our perspective at UD is that if you are the English teaching side of an immersion program, it is enormously beneficial for you to have this certification. I think it will benefit you and your students enormously. I'm a little biased since I'm a huge supporter of these programs, and obviously I run this, but I think it would be a great thing to do. Technically, you don't need an ESL certificate to be the English side teacher. The only teacher who needs the language certification is the Spanish or Chinese side because there are some Chinese programs, teacher, but practically it would certainly be a good thing, especially if the district is serious about enrolling ELs, so that the immersion program is, now if they're going to use the immersion program as the ESL service model, they really, really should have a certified teacher there. Again, the districts are handling these slightly differently. These are great programs. They appear to be very successful, but yes, you ought to be able to get that. Any other questions about certification or costs? We try to keep book costs. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a question about the critical needs. Some similar to what the girl online said. I'm going to be a program next year, Colonial.
Yep.
So when I contact human contact district, what was the name of the or start of?
Hang on one second. I'm getting a lot of overlap here. I'm trying to figure out who's speaking here because I've got a lot of different voices. Who's
My name
asking?
is Cheryl.
Sorry?
My name is Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl. What? Can you just give me the last 4 digits of your phone number, and I'm going to mute everyone else so I can hear your question.
5725.
5725. Super. Everyone else, I'm just going to mute you for a sec. Okay, super. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Sorry. So when you had mentioned, I'm going to be the ELA part of the Spanish immersion program at Colonial next year. So when I contact my district, I've already been in touch with Katie a little bit, but when I contact her, I just wanted to know the name of the program that you said that was started with Markel, where maybe some of the funds could come from there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So the question was about the additional program. The program is on the screen now for those of you who have it up there. It's the Governor's World Language Expansion Initiative. So this was Governor Markel's, I'm going to go back and mute some phones here because this is, it gets very loud. This was Governor Markel's initiative to create bilingual programs. Not all bilingual programs are two-way immersion programs to make life more complicated. The Chinese ones tend not to be, I believe. And that provides money directly to the school. And the school gets money for professional development. So there's a couple of questions to ask. One is, so Colonial is one of our most enthusiastic collaborators. Colonial does provide additional funds for ACE teachers. It's about the cost of one course. And they've been great at asking for critical needs scholarship. So you may well get pretty much everything covered that way. You can also ask your building administrator, or maybe go through Katie or whoever the immersion coordinator is, to see whether there is world language expansion professional development funds available.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Super. All right, let's move on. Okay. Okay, I did mention before that the 5 courses that we offer through ACE are also part of our MA TESOL. That's the Masters in Teaching English as a Second Language. I'm just going to talk about this, even if you're not interested in the MA. There is one really important quirk in the Delaware system you need to know. If you do not have a master's degree in deeds, in other words, you have a bachelor's degree, you must enroll in the MA TESOL in order to earn your BA plus 15 salary step. You do not need to complete the master's degree, but unless the courses were earned as part of a licensed degree program, an accredited degree program, they won't give you the salary step. I'm laughing because I can't possibly see a reason for that, but that's Delaware rules. If you have a master's degree or higher already, you can take the courses in non-degree status or as part of the degree. It doesn't matter, and you should still be eligible for your salary step. Please confirm all of this with your own HR departments, as again, I'm just reporting what I've been told over the last couple of years. Now then, UD has another quirk here, which is you can only transfer 9 credits, so 3 courses taken in non-degree status, into a master's degree. what that means is if you have any thought about completing the master's, you need to apply before you start your 4th course or you'll lose credit. We will facilitate that, and we will waive the GRE test requirement pending successful completion of the first couple of courses, because all the GRE tells you is whether you can take graduate courses, and you would already have done that. So we'll make it as easy as we can. And we will, obviously, if you need to enroll for the salary step, we will guarantee to enroll you. The 5 courses will give you 15 credits. It's a 33 credit program. You can find more information on the School of Education website, and I can put a link in the chat box as well if you like. There are 4 additional classes which can only be taken in Newark, I'm afraid. We don't offer classes off campus for the rest of the MA. And then the 6 credit practicum, which would usually be student teaching. Obviously, you don't need to do student teaching because you already have teaching licenses. So we've created a special practicum that can be done in your schools with all the interaction and papers done online. So you don't need to come in for that. If you take 676 this summer, can you enroll first as non-degree and enroll for the MA in the fall? Yes, you can transfer up to 3 courses taken in non-degree status into a UD master's degree, or any graduate degree, in fact. Okay. And I always tell teachers, if you have any thought of completing the master's, you don't have to do it right away. You can do the 15 credits and then go on a leave of absence and come back and complete it later if you want. And you've got, I think, a 5-year window to do it. And so if you discover you like it, then you can do that. I should make it clear, though, that in the regular MA, they don't offer classes in Georgetown or online, unfortunately. The ACE program is the only program to offer those. In fact, it's one of very few graduate programs to offer that, which we're really proud to do, but I'd love to see us do more. Things will go online eventually, but not yet. Just to give you an idea, this program is now, you would be the 4th cohort to go through. By the end of this summer, we'll have certified 49 teachers, which makes a significant dent in the need. And I've spoken just in the last couple of months, this is my first cohort actually, with the superintendent of schools at Red Clay and Barbara Prillerman, who is I guess taking the picture because she's not in this. And we've had at least 3 or 4 teachers who have, after taking the ACE program or during the program, even been moved into full-time ESL positions, often in their own school or district, which is really exciting for me because one of the purposes of this program wasn't just to help you get the certification, but so that teachers who have the certification can go on and be advocates for ELs and hopefully take leadership positions in the schools. So it's working quite well. On the screen, you have my contact information. That's my office phone number and email. For those of you on the phones, you've got my email address because you've all been in touch with me. In order to register, there are no requirements as long as you have a teaching certificate and a bachelor's degree. There's no other requirements to take this. There's no application process. You just register on our website, which most of you have done. If you have already registered, an email to confirm that you intend to participate would be very helpful so that I know that I have enough people. At this stage, I'm still collecting names. I'm confident we will be able to start courses in the fall, but I need to be more certain of numbers, and then I need to get the classes created. You register yourself through UD's registration system, and hopefully in another month or so I'll be able to send you information about that. Each semester you have to register yourself. I can't do it. They've made that clear to me. I send lots and lots of emails to keep you on track, and I do track all the classes you've taken to make sure that you do everything on time, but the registration is your own responsibility. Okay, I'm going to unmute everyone, so dive in with any questions at this point. If there are no questions, I'll thank you for taking the time to join me this evening in, trains, planes, and automobiles, or wherever you are in the world. It's a nice thing about this Zoom platform is we can have people anywhere. do get in touch with me if you have questions. Feel free to put me in touch with people in your schools or district offices, and do spread the word. Some of you have been great about spreading the word and recruiting people. The more people who enroll, the easier it is for me to run classes, honestly. And of course, the more people we can reach. If you are not able to do the program, I do encourage you to take our summer course. This can be taken for professional development clock hours without credit. It's June 18th to the 28th, 6 days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday of 2 weeks in Dover. And please spread the word to colleagues, and especially we would love to get some administrators there. Administrators, especially in these schools with high EL populations. Nothing about ESL and second language acquisition is part of the regular training for a building administrator. We've worked with some wonderful people who are really compassionate and enthusiastic and want to learn this, but we can really help. So even if they can only make a day or two, it does make a difference. You know, any help you can to give me in spreading the word about both the ACE program and the summer course, it's hard for me to get the word out in the school, so anything you can do is really helpful there. If there's any other questions, I will stick around online. Feel free to either type or call out questions, or get in touch with me by email. And thanks so much for stopping by to talk, and I hope to meet you in person at some point, and that we'll be able to see you in the program.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye. Ellen, did I answer everything? Any other questions?
Yep, no, that's all. I'm gonna contact Christine Smith about the certification program.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. And I'm trying to remember how many they said they'd fund, but I know we didn't reach the number of people, so there was definitely funds available. The ESL coordinator at Red Clay is Carol Beck at district office, if you know Carol Beck, and she's wonderful as well, and both Carol and Chris know my program very well. I've exchanged millions of emails and phone calls with them, it seems, to get this running, so they really know this.
Because the program didn't start in the springtime, would they possibly maybe have money for this summer program? I mean, the summer classes, or is that strictly like not?
They might do. You could certainly ask Carol. I think if you were going to continue with the program, then I don't think that they are not restricted to fall and spring. It's the emergency cert, the CNS is restricted, and it's a weird quirk of the Delaware Code, and it's because years ago the state used to pay for all teachers to take summer classes. So there was no need for it to pay for the summer. That line got axed in budget cuts in 2008, I believe, and of course, you know how things are. Once funding goes, it's very hard to get it back, and even though this is now completely illogical because teachers actually have time in the summer to take classes, you'd think that would be the obvious time when they would want you to take classes, but no.
Yeah.
So I'm that is a complete mystery to me, but we're trying to get that changed. But no, the district can spend the money whenever they like, and since it is actually I think it's a June to June year, they might be quite enthusiastic about that. So if you get in touch with Carol and Chris and see, and if you're interested, the course is actually called $6.99 in the summer. It's not called 676. It counts the 676. It's just a logistical thing at my end that it means that the linguistics department doesn't worry about it, and they let me do what I like. So that's nice.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, you're very welcome. Have a good evening. Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
All right. Bye bye.